Gun Galleria here. What we have with us today is a rather rare replica. And I know it seems a little contradictory. I mean, it's a replica, so how can it necessarily be rare? In this case, this is a L.A. Jensen 44 caliber Spiller Burr. So, in the early 50s, about 1952, L.A. Jensen out of Lake City, Florida, decided he was going to start producing replica black powder revolvers. Now, he is the first person to actually do this. Prior to him, there were no black powder replicas of, Civil War kind of firearms. This Spiller and Burr was a Confederate pistol. So this, these would have originally been made in 36 caliber. And the reason he did 44 was to try to prevent unscrupulous people from trying to pass them off as original. Because the originals being 36, it's easy to tell that it's just not the right gun then, if you're trying to pass it off as being an original. Now, the workmanship on these is excellent. Lockup is fantastic. This particular one, I'm not sure how much it ever got shot. It is all still very tight, still very well held together. Trigger is still very crisp. And this is, where your whole replicas started. So Uberti, Cimarron, you name it, Pieta. This is before all of them. This is before Navy Arms. He started doing these like 8 years before Navy Arms even got involved. So these were something that he manufactured. And it is definitely a very well-made gun. The interesting choice of using a round barrel instead of octagonal, which is what you find a lot of replicas. So your reproductions are usually, what you're usually used to seeing is, your Italian marks along the sides, date codes, proof marks, all that. None of that exists on this. There's nowhere on here that there's any form of proof marks, of course, because it's made in the U.S. Now, one thing I found interesting about this is something else that is absolutely missing on this is any caliber markings. So there's no caliber markings. And what else was it? I was thinking, oh, well, I kind of expect something else. You're very used to seeing them all stamped black powder only. Not anywhere on this firearm is that stamping. Now, this particular one is serial number 11. Now, there's a gentleman who does a lot of research on these, and I believe that would make this the 6th one known. Estimates are that there were about 100 of them made, if that many. Serial numbers only go up to the 40s that anybody's seen so far. This is the lowest serial number seen as of yet. And that we're talking about years. I'm not talking about like, oh, hey, every couple of months something like this pops up. No. Ones like this only pop up years apart. So, yeah, it's a rather interesting piece. I'm used to seeing things with, with the, your loading lever being, round, it's square. It's just a really kind of interesting firearm and very well put together. But yeah, not sure of a lot of the story behind this particular revolver, but when I saw it, I immediately knew I needed to pick it up because it was something different, and that's what I'm usually looking for. Different or unusual, and yeah, this one's definitely fits that category. Yep, serial number 11, and then below that it's marked L.A. Jensen's, Lake City, Florida here. So the same kind of markings as you find on the top of the barrel. Those are the only markings on this gun. Now, interesting is the bluing, which is very thick black bluing, is on the top of the hammer, but not the sides. And of course it's, you know, on the underside of the hammer as well, which I find that rather interesting. So there was a lot of care taken in the production of these. But yeah, from 52 to say about 58, less than 100 were made. So obviously this is one of those definite small manufacturers. I need to dig more into it, but there's very well possibility that he was just producing this stuff on his own. You know, this is a one-man operation making these things. And that makes it even more interesting. Anyway, so if you ever come across something like this, and you look at it and go, oh, well, it's just a replica. Remember, sometimes replicas, they can be quite interesting if they're not your typical, you know, Italian-made one. Definitely worth picking up.